Hello and welcome to Freewave TV. I'm Paige Friedman, bringing you the latest in maritime news from around the world. Today in maritime news, oil and gas production in Norway halted as offshore workers go on strike. Chinese shipbuilders see a decline in output. Officials in Jordan are let go over investigation on last week's toxic gas release. Ports worldwide continue to deal with congestion. Global supply chain shortages impact American car manufacturer. Mediterranean Shipping Company in plans for $6 billion port project in Vietnam. P&O Cruises sees full fleet back in service. In Norway, offshore workers have gone on strike as they demand more pay in order to deal with the rising inflation. At midnight local time, members of the Norwegian Organization of Managers and Executives, otherwise known as the Ladurnes Union, put down their tools, and with them nearly 90,000 barrels of oil and gas production will be taken offline. The strike comes a day after Norway approved additional production from several fields in an attempt to address gas supply shortages and partially compensate for Russian export cutbacks. The Ladurnes Union is the only union to have its members striking following last Thursday's proposed wage agreement, which the union rejected. During the first 5 months of the year, China's shipbuilding output has dropped 15.3% year-on-year. The Chinese shipbuilding yards reported having a volume of 14.28 million deadweight tonnage during those 5 months. The decline in the shipbuilding output is an indicator of the recessions and how the shipping demands for existing carriers will continue to be high. Following the release of toxic chlorine gas last week at the port of Aqaba, the Jordanian government dismissed multiple port officials. An initial investigation into the incident found that the gas release was caused by a lack of conformity of the crane's load rating with the weight of the cargo. The rope holding the container of the gas parted, dropping the container onto the deck of a ship, which released the gas and killed 13 people. Jordanian Interior Minister Nazen Faraya told the media that the port officials that were fired, including the Aqaba Company for Ports Operation and Management's director, did not have any leadership skills. Throughout the world, congestion at the ports is worsening. According to Clarkson's Container Ship Port Congestion Index, as of last Thursday, 36.2% of the global fleet was at port, which is up from 31.5% during the pre-pandemic years from 2016 to 2019. The report also found that congestion on the U.S. East Coast is now close to record levels. Globally, different countries have seen more pressure at their ports due to a number of factors. China has been dealing with ongoing COVID measures and typhoon season. Meanwhile, in Europe, the beginning of summer holidays, rounds of strikes, growing COVID cases, and bunching of vessels coming from Asia have impacted ports. Manufacturers are continuing to be impacted by the global supply chain. General Motors, one of America's largest car manufacturers, reportedly had to build 95,000 vehicles without certain components as a result of a shortage of computer chips and other parts. During the last year, GM's Fort Wayne assembly plant was impacted by chip shortages multiple times, with the most recent halting production for 2 weeks in April. The Mediterranean Shipping Company is in the works to develop Vietnam's largest box port complex. Terminal Investment Limited, a port subsidiary of MSC, is connected with Vietnam National Shipping Lines and Saigon Port to go ahead of a massive transshipment hub in Can Gio. The $6 billion project would enable the port to handle the largest box ships afloat, and when completely finished, it would have a yearly throughput in excess of 10 million 20-foot equivalent units. The proposal for the port has been sent to the Prime Minister of Vietnam, and if approved, TIL and its partners would aim to begin construction in 2024. In other news, today will mark the return of another cruise line's entire fleet. P&O Cruises' Arcadia ship is sailing out of Southampton, England today, following a 3-month suspension of its operations. This is the second time that the Arcadia is returning to service following the COVID-19 pandemic. It originally came back in March 2022, but then it had to stop operations again due to crew shortages. And now, here's the news making headlines around the world. following Russia's upheaval and capturing on Sunday of the now besieged city of Lysychansk, rests the image of bullet-riddled Ukrainian police cars, enormous shell-scarred government facilities, and a wrecked Orthodox Church's Golden Dome. In a city that was home to 100,000, few residents were found. A group consisting of all women surveyed the damage, seeing a World War II symbol adopted by Russian forces hung over a wrecked local government building, with the offices inside exposed to the elements. Today, following Russia's acquisition of the city of Lysychansk, Russian forces struck targets across Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region for what many believe is to clear the way for an anticipated armored advance to try to seize additional territory. According to Sefi Gaidai, the Ukrainian governor of Luhansk, Ukrainian forces that retreated from Lysychansk over the weekend repositioned new defensive lines in Donetsk today. Their latest accumulation marks the stage for the biggest battle in Europe in generations. Today, NATO's 30 allies signed an accession protocol for Finland and Sweden, marking the most significant expansion of the alliance since the 1990s. This deal allows the Nordic nations to join the nuclear-armed alliance once parliaments ratify the decision while protecting them from the atrocities thrust upon Ukraine. The signing at NATO headquarters follows a deal with Turkey at last week's NATO summit in Madrid, where Ankara lifted its veto on the Nordic membership bids following assurances that both countries would do more to fight terrorism. Yesterday in the Chicago suburbs of Highland Park, during an American Independence Day parade, a gunman perched himself on top of a roof and opened fire on families celebrating their freedom. The shooting resulted in the death of 6 people and it injured 36 others. Police reported that hours after the shooting, 22-year-old Robert E. Crimo III surrendered to the authorities after they took him into custody. Late Monday night, following the word of the Chicago shooting near the Philadelphia Museum of Art on the final day of a festival with a large number of people watching a fireworks show after a concert, 2 Philadelphia police officers were shot near the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. According to NBC 10, one officer sustained a graze wound to the head and the other gunshot wound to the right shoulder. Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney said both officers in Philadelphia were released from the hospital after suffering non-life-threatening injuries. Following his report came the disappointing news that police were still searching for the shooter. As the United States continues to bleed, it continues to give. Today in South Korea, the United States Air Force F-35A stealth fighters arrived, marking their first publicly announced visit since 2017. This move comes as the Allies and nuclear-armed North Korea engage in an escalating cycle of displays of weapons. South Korea's Ministry of Defense said in a statement that the 6 F-35As will be in South Korea for 10 days. On the Asian Pacific front, at 5:40 p.m., the Meteorological Center of China issued 184 heatwave alerts across northern, northwestern, and southwestern provinces. Over the next 2 weeks, those areas are expected to experience a series of heat waves. More than 250 million people are expected to grapple with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in some regions. Today, the intensifying flood crisis in Sydney continues to baffle many as torrential rains blast the Australian east coast. Authorities said that about 50,000 people in Sydney's western suburbs have been told to either evacuate or warned they might receive evacuation orders, spiking the number from Monday up by 20,000. The federal government has now declared the floods a natural disaster, helping flood-hit residents receive emergency funding support. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who returned to Australia Tuesday after a week-long trip to Europe, said he would tour the affected regions on Wednesday along with Petter Road. On Monday, Italy declared a state of emergency for areas surrounding the Po River and water basins of the Eastern Alps. The state of emergency comes as a result of a water shortage. The Italian government said that the state of emergency is aimed at managing the current situation with extraordinary means and powers, with relief and assistance to the affected population. The government also added that further measures could be taken in the future to deal with the drought, which water authorities say is increasingly impacting central Italy after an extremely dry winter and spring, followed by an exceptionally hot early summer. The hunt for 13 climbers who went missing following avalanche in the high Italian Alps on Sunday is raging on. However, hope was fleeting as the search hit the 36-hour mark. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi said the disaster was linked to climate change. The avalanche killed at least 7, with the peak still unstable. Rescuers have been using drones and helicopters to look for victims or to try to locate them through their mobile phone signals. On the African front, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed described a recent wave of violence against an ethnic community as a massacre. According to witnesses, the violence emerged Monday in the western Oromia region's Hawa Galan. It started right before morning and lasted for at least 3 hours. This is the second such attack in a little over 2 weeks. The last left more than 300 dead. In a statement on Twitter, the Prime Minister vowed to eliminate the armed group, the Oromo Liberation Army, which he blamed for the violence. Witnesses also stated that while their homes were set on fire, men, women, children, and old people were massacred without discrimination, forcing survivors to seek refuge in mosques. A haul of heroin hidden and masked as baby food was intercepted at Lagos's main airport. According to National Narcotic Law Enforcement Agency, 3 individuals have been detained in connection with carrying 23 kilograms of the drug aboard a South African Airways flight out of Johannesburg. In a separate case, according to Anti-Drug Agency, a bus driver was detained at the same airport on suspicion of ingesting 90 pellets of cocaine before attempting to board a flight to Dubai. Nigeria acts as a transit point for various illicit drugs. Government officials in the past have described Nigeria's drug presence as alarming and endemic. According to sources, Tigray People's Liberation Front, which has been at war with the Ethiopian government since 2020, has received training and backing from the Ugandan army. The first reports emerged in May on online Ethiopian media outlets. However, a spokesman for the Ugandan army tweeted on Sunday that the purported efforts by Uganda to destabilize Ethiopia were complete fiction. A document released just last week begged to differ, as it held a list of Ugandan senior army officers and others from across the security forces who are allegedly spearheading the training operation in the central Ugandan district of Masaka. We're now going to take it over to Jean-Louis, who's going to share what's going on in the sports world.
Thanks, Paige. It is a day removed from Independence Day in the US of A. But as always, we at Freewave like to spread some love throughout. Of course, this is Jean-Louis, and here's your sports stories from across the globe. We start off with some tennis, where the Wimbledon Open is entering its finale. After many stories have unfolded already, the returning Serena Williams getting bounced in the first round, as well as Coco Gauff getting bounced by the lower-ranked Amanda Anisimova, many stories are still up for grabs. After his victory over Tim van Houten, Novak Djokovic is going head-to-head against Italy's Yannick Sinner in the quarterfinal matchup, on his end to close the presumptive Nadal rematch in the final. Now, at the time of recording, Djokovic is up 4-2 through the first set. Nadal, following his 4th-round win, will compete against up-and-coming American star Taylor Fritz. On the women's side, it's a bit more like the Wild Wild West. As upsets are abound, the highest seed remaining in the tourney is the 3rd seed Ons Jabeur, who will compete later on in the morning against Marie Bokazova. Another favorite, the aforementioned Amanda Anisimova, faces Romanian Simone Halep tomorrow in the quarterfinal matchup. Now from grass to grass, we go to golf, where the GOAT tuned up his swing once more. Multi-time PGA champ Tiger Woods was an active participant in the opening round of the 2-day JP McManus in Ireland. Woods shot 77 on the day, scoring amongst the ranks of notable stars such as Matt Fitzpatrick with 78. Other stars who attended were Rory McIlroy, as well as recent LIV additions Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, and Dustin Johnson. Speaking of which, what's the update with these LIV golfers on the PGA Tour? Can they play in these tourneys? Perhaps an open, forbidden door of some sort. Well, as of today, we might have seen 3 stars crack the code. Ian Poulter, Adrian Otonoki, and Justin Harding each ruled in favor of competing in the upcoming Scottish Open after challenging their suspensions from the upcoming events without release from the co-sanctioning DP, formerly London World Tour. They'll be added to the roster this week as the event begins this Thursday, July 7th. PSG has announced another blockbuster move as after winning the League One championship, Mauricio Pochettino resigns as manager of the team. In his place, the Frenchman Christophe Galtier is the new manager. Galtier was at Nice last month, guiding them to a 5th seed, as well as a runner-up in the French Open this past year. Galtier is PSG's 7th coach since the Qatari takeover of the club took place over a decade ago. Brittany Griner returns into the headlines today as after multiple pleas from athletes, her family, and a legion of American fans worldwide, the Mercury star has made a plea to President Biden while in detainment in Russia. Excerpt of her message was sent to the president, which was released on Twitter yesterday by ESPN's TJ Quinn. Now, in the letter, she mentioned being terrified that she might be there forever, in the prison alone, miles away from her accomplishments and her family. It has been nearly 5 months since the star was initially detained. In the MLB, many games were on tap last night. However, the biggest takeaway came by way of a Twins 8-5 triple play, the first in MLB history, winning 6-3 over the Chicago White Sox. Now, in ways, the mood of the White Sox, of course, was altered by the Independence Day mass shooting that had taken place earlier on that day, leading many stars, including closer Liam Hendriks, to question the worth of playing amid the violence. As of now, it is scheduled that the White Sox will continue their series with the Twins at 8. For more on the mass shooting and all of its influence on the athletes at hand, head over to Freeway for more. On the bright side, the NBA is going crazy, as following day 1 of the free agency period, it was said that forward Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, the star, who had spent over 3 seasons with the franchise, is now trying to make his move. He made the playoffs with the team twice in his time with the team. Now, in wake of the news, TJ Warren has signed a 1-year deal with the Nets, perhaps gearing up for what's next for the franchise. Where will he and Kyrie go? Let's stay tuned to find out. We end off the day with some USA patriotism. You see the colors, you see the holiday cheer, of course. But like the 4th has come a time-honored tradition, as has a hot dog eating contest. Naturally, as is multi-time contest winner Joey Chestnut annually dominating the field, the competitive eater yet again wins another contest, joining fellow record holder Mickey Sadu as the best of the best. Chestnut took down 63 hot dogs in the win, while Sudo ate 40, winning the crown 1 year after missing the competition due to pregnancy. Ain't nobody stopping them but themselves. That's all I got for you today. Once again, this is Jean-Louis. This is Freewave. That's your news. Take care, folks.
That's all we have for today. For more detailed news, you can visit our website, www.freewavetv.com.